Welcome and good afternoon. This is Commish Orr, and today is part 2 in my How to Play Season Ticket Baseball series. It's not much of a series. I thought I'd do it all in one video, but the video ended up running long, so I thought I'd split it after that. And so check out part 1 of How to Play Season Ticket Baseball. That covers all of the basics. Today we're going to cover the rest of playing season ticket baseball, which is really focused on offensive and defensive strategies, and I am going to talk about some of the other odds and ends that I did not talk about in the first video, such as weather and maybe a couple other optional rules such as that. As always, if you want to check out the projects that I have going on right now, you can head over to baseballmaelstrom.com. I have 2 current projects. One is a season ticket baseball project. It's the best of the 90s tournament. And you can see the page right here that I'm hovering over. The other project I have going on is season 2 of my POPs League, my Payoff Pitch League. And so that's what you can find under POPs League season 2. You can see the stats and the schedule. And the standings and upcoming games and such are from my Payoff Pitch League. So those are the 2 projects I have going on right now. In any event, let's talk about season ticket baseball. So I have the setup again here with some different player cards that I'm going to use when I'm talking about these different topics. And I'm going to use the 1998 New York Yankees and the 1990 Oakland Athletics, who are 2 of the teams that are left in the best of the 90s tournament. I'm going to use them to demonstrate some of this stuff. For a stadium, I am using Yankee Stadium, 1998 Yankee Stadium, so I'll be using that when we talk about some things as well. I also on the screen have my dice roller, my XL dice roller that I created. You can find a video about that on the channel as well if you're curious about that. And it's going to be where I'm going to use it to roll some dice and demonstrate some things and some options and that kind of thing. So I have that down here. And then I don't know that I'll need this, but if we need the field here, we may refer to that as well. Position numbers and players and that kind of thing. But I'm not sure if I'll need that. All right. Now let's talk about offensive strategies. Let's spend some time there. So there are, one thing I will say is season ticket baseball is pretty robust in the offensive and defensive strategies that you have at your fingertips and that it has rules for, more so than most games that I've seen. The first and most common one that you'll run across is bunting, sacrifice bunting. So let's say you want to sacrifice bunt. And I'm going to pull up Derek Jeter here as our bunt example. Okay, so whenever you want to sacrifice bunt, you're going to roll 3 dice, the 3 dice, and you are going to consult. You're going to consult this chart. You're going to roll the 3 dice. You're going to add them to the bunt rating of the player, and then you're going to look at this chart, this bunting chart, to see what happens. And let's just do an example and show you. 1, 4, 4, and you're going to add them up. So 1 plus 4 plus 4, that's 9, and his bunt is 5. So 9 plus 5 is a 14. Oh, perfect. Foul. He has 2 strikes on him. See below. Okay, so that's one example. We're going to show what that means here in a minute. Okay. But you're going to do that, and you're going to add his bunt rating, and then you're going to look at this chart to see what happens. And generally speaking, if you roll really low, or if you have a really bad bunt rating and you get a 9 or less, then there's a chance of a double play. If you roll a 1 through 7, the bunt is going to be a line out to either the pitcher or the third baseman, depending on what it is, and the lead forced runner is doubled up. So if you had a runner on first and you're trying to advance him to second on a sacrifice, and you roll very, very poorly and have a low enough bunt rating and you get a 1 through 7 or 1 through 6 or a 7, the bunt was lined to the pitcher or the third baseman, and he is going to double up the lead runner. So on an 8 or a 9, you'll see double play question mark. That's a bunt right in front of the home plate to either catch or the pitcher is going to pick it up, and that's a possible double play. At the least, they're going to get the lead runner, the lead forced runner. So there's a runner on first, like in our example. They're going to get the runner at second base. On top of that, they can complete the double play, or they can try to. And in that case, you're going to challenge the trail runner's speed with the arm rating of the pivot man. Okay? Arm rating of the pivot man is the middle person of the double play. So you look at this little chart here and you say, let's stick to our example of a runner on first. There's a runner on first. Batter dribbles one in front of the plate, and they get a DP question mark to the pitcher. That's going to be a 163 potential 163 double play. If we look at the chart here, it's definitely going to be put out at second base, right? But then he's going to challenge the runner's speed, and in this case, the trail runner is the batter himself, and it's going to be against the arm of the pivot man. So you'll notice when you do challenges, most of the time, most challenges, you're rolling the 3 dice and adding the speed to it, and you're comparing that to the arm plus 10. In these cases we're going to look at in these strategy examples, most of the time you're actually challenging the speed. You're rolling the dice and adding the arm, and the fielder is challenging the runner's speed, not the runner challenging the fielder's arm, if that makes sense. So it's a little bit of a difference you have to keep in mind when you're doing this. But you'll roll your 3 dice. Let's go back to, I'm going to just say it's Jeter. And let's say he rolled an 8 or a 9, right? So, and let's say the arm of the fielder is a 3. It's a pretty standard arm. Then what we would do is we would roll our 3 dice. 1, 4, 8. 1 plus 4 is 5. 5 plus 8 is 13. 13 plus 3 is a 16. And is that greater than or equal to 10 plus the runner's speed? If it's Jeter, he has a 7 for speed, and he's going to beat that throw out to first base. Because the 16, assuming an arm of 3 in our example, a 16 is not greater than or equal to 10 plus his speed. So he beats it out. A slower runner, like Chuck Knobloch, would have been out because 10 plus his speed is only 15. And this roll plus the arm was 16. So it's a double play in that case. I'll come back to misses and fouls here in a second. 15 through 17 is a possible fielder's choice. That's when the defense has a choice to make. On a 15 or 16, they can take the automatic out at first automatically, in which case it's a regular sacrifice because they're throwing the runner out at first. And in that case, the forced runner advances. Or the defense has the choice of trying to get the forced runner out. If they do that, then again, they are going to challenge the speed of the runner. They're going to roll the 3 dice, add the arm. If it's greater than or equal to 10 plus the runner's speed, they get that lead runner. Okay, but the defense has a choice in those cases, 15 through 17. If, by the way, they're playing in, and we'll see Infield In here in a minute, you're going to add 3 to a fielder's arm if they're playing in. Because they're playing in, so they're closer to that. They're closer to the ball on a bunt, right? So that they're going to get a little bit of an advantage to their arm because they're closer to fielding the ball on a bunt. In any event, if they attempt to get that lead runner and they fail, then everybody's safe. The most likely results are going to be the 18 to 23 range most of the time, and that's your regular sacrifices. 18 or 19 are regular sacrifices, either to the pitcher or the third baseman. Sac plus means it's a good bunt, the batter's still out, and instead of just the forced runners advancing, all runners advance if it's a plus. If it's a plus, all runners advance, not just the forced runners. 24, 25, 26, and 27. So 24 and above is a potential base hit. And in those cases, whatever the fielder is has to challenge the runner's speed to try to throw them out at first base. The runners that are already, let's say the runner on first, he's already going to advance. Okay, 24 through 27, he's already going to advance automatically. It's just a case of trying to get the batter out. And if you fail at that, then everybody's safe. If you succeed, then it's a regular sacrifice hit. It's a regular sacrifice hit if you succeed. If you need to know who the putouts are, you can look at this little chart down here and cross-reference the fielder with the runner that is put out. Because again, sometimes because of, let's say, first baseman, well, that's probably not a good example, but depending on who the fielder is and which runner is put out, will tell you where they're throwing and who's fielding that ball and that kind of thing. So you can do the put out correctly. Okay, so there's your bunting. That's probably the most common one, sacrifice hits. The only thing I didn't mention is this section right here, the misses and the fouls. Misses and fouls, and you get 2 strikes on you. And the easiest way is to look at this flow chart on page 8 of the rules. This little flow chart. So this is the 2-strike flow chart, and this happens in our example. The very first thing I rolled for Jeter was a foul, so he would have 2 strikes on him. So if you have 2 strikes, the offense has 2 choices. They can keep the bunt on, try again. Let's do that and see what happens for Jeter. Let's leave the bunt on and see what happens. All right. 3 plus 5 is 8. 8 plus 6 is 14. 14 plus 5 is 19. And he had 2 strikes on him, but 19 is a successful sacrifice to the third baseman. Okay. But you run a risk, because if we had rolled a miss or foul again, then the batter would have struck out. Okay. If you do that twice in a row, the batter strikes out on the bunt. On the other hand, what the offense could choose to do instead, they try to do the bunt, they get a miss or a foul, they have 2 strikes on the batter, and they're like, okay, I'm just going to swing away at this point instead. So in that case, you can swing away, but there are some penalties that you have. First of all, if you decide to swing away after getting 2 strikes on a bunt, all of the stadium results, 600 through 699, are going to be strikeouts. All of those stadium results are going to be strikeouts, 600 to 699. If it's higher than that and it's a deep drive, usually it's a deep drive to center. In fact, if we pull up the Yankee Stadium card, we can see 701 and above is a deep drive to center. Deep drives, you would subtract 3 from the batter's power rating. So in the case of Jeter, his power is 6. But if he swung away with 2 strikes and got a deep drive to center, we would subtract 3 from his power, and his power would be a 3 for that result instead of the normal 6, because he's just trying to make contact at that point, not trying to swing hard for the fences, if you will. All right. If the result is a walk, so you have 2 strikes, you decide to swing away, and the result you get is a walk. So let's say Jeter gets 2 strikes like he just did, and we're like, let's swing away instead. And we roll a 405, which would be a walk. You don't get the walk, and instead you've worked it to a full count. You've worked it to a full count. Okay? And then at that point, if you work it to a full count, you're going to roll again. You're going to roll again and look at this little chart, the full count chart. And in that case, the 600 to 699s all turn into walks. So if you roll a stadium with a full count, you get a walk. Any wild pitch is a wild pitch plus a walk. Same with the pass ball. Pass ball results in the pass ball, we do the pass ball, but then we do a walk. With 2 outs, so if there happened to be 2 outs when all this happened, we would add 3 to the speed of any base runners when we're doing the rest of the play. Because, again, full count, 2 outs, they're running with the pitch. So that's just something to keep in mind. Look at this flow chart if you're trying to decipher that. It's kind of told here too. Now, squeeze plays is when you bunt with a runner on third. And in that case, the runner is either forced because it's a bases loaded situation, or you're going to say he's going on contact, and we're going to look at this going on contact section, which we'll talk about here in a second. A suicide squeeze is high risk because the runner on third is going to take off for home as the pitch is thrown. So if the batter gets the bunt down in that case, then the runner on third is automatically safe at home because he went on the pitch. If the batter bunts into a line out or pop out, then that runner on third is going to get doubled off of third base. If the bunt results in a miss, then the runner on third, because he was going on the pitch and the batter missed the bunt, runner on third must steal without establishing a lead, which we talked about that in video 1. So I'd refer you back to that section to get those results. And as I mentioned, and maybe I didn't, but let me just mention, you may be thinking, can I bunt for a hit? No, you can't. You can't bunt for a hit. Those are factored into the results here. So 345 to 361, for example, on Jeter's card says 1B IF. That's a single to the infield. And some of those infield singles are bunts for hits, if you will. They've been factored into the results already. You can't choose to try to bunt for a hit. They're already factored into the results. So the other thing that you can do on offense, all of the results I talked about so far assumed that you had runners that were forced, like a runner on first base, and you're bunting, so the runner is forced. But let's say you have a runner that's not forced, right? Normally, those unforced runners aren't advancing unless you get that 20 or above roll. That's the SAC plus. Normally they aren't advancing unless you get that roll. But let's say you would like to kind of push your luck a little bit. In that case, you can decide to go on contact. And you're going to announce that before you roll. And let's say you have runners on first and third. And you're bunting. And you're like, I want to have that runner on third go on contact. Much like the squeeze play. Then we're going to look at this. Then in that case, the runners are treated as if they were forced for purposes of the chart. Because remember, on those bad bunts, the lead runner or the lead forced runner was put out. So on a bad bunt, if you're going on contact, that lead runner may be out. However, if there's a challenge, the benefit of going on contact is you get to add 3 to that base runner's speed for any challenges. So normally the challenge you would you'd roll the dice. Let's go back here. You roll the dice, you add the arm, and compare it to 10 plus the runner's speed. Well, if the runner was going on contact and he was not forced, it would be 13 plus the runner's speed, 10 plus runner's speed plus that additional 3. So there is a benefit to it, even though it's risky. All right. Let's talk about another strategy that you can use on offense, and that's hit and run. So usually that's with a runner on first, and you're doing a hit and run, and when you do that, the runner on first is going to take off for second base with the pitch, and the batter's trying to put the ball in play, regardless of whether the pitch is a strike or not. They're just trying to get their bat on the ball, mostly to prevent double plays. But it also opens up some holes in the defense. Okay, and again, we're gonna if we're doing a hit and run, we're gonna look at this chart here, these charts, for outcomes, because there are some benefits, but there are a couple of penalties. There's a couple of penalties there as well. You can do it with a runner on first, and that's what this talks about. So with a runner on first, if you're doing a hit and run and you get a strikeout result on a hit and run, instead what happens is that you're going to have to steal without a lead for that runner. And to resolve what happens with the batter, you're going to use the two strikes. You're going to use the two strikes section up here from the walks area. Right here, two strikes. And we're going to use the two strikes chart to decide what happens. If you get a walk, you're going to go to two strikes because you fouled off the pitch. So the runner doesn't have to steal in that case, but you're put in a two strike situation, and you need to decide what you want to do from there. If you get a deep drive, then you would treat the deep drive like normal, except the power rating of the hitter is a 0, because again, if it were Jeter doing it, he's not trying to swing at the fences. He's just trying to put the bat on the ball. So instead of a power of 6, he'd have a power of 0 on deep drives. So those are some negatives, I guess you might say. The positives are all of the double plays, or all of these, 163, 363, 463, 543, 643, all of those double plays, or the fielder's choice putouts at second base, 1-6, 4-6, 5-4, 6-4, those putouts all turn into outs at first base, which advances the runner. So it gets the runner over to second on all of those plays and breaks up the double play. You'll notice that a 4-3 or a 5-3 or a 6-3 double play are unaffected, because those double plays, 4-3 or 6-3, for example, are unassisted double plays at second. Those are balls hit so close to the bag that the fielder is just stepping on the bag themselves. So in that case, a hit and run even, the ball's hit up the middle, the fielder's right there and steps on second anyway. So it doesn't affect, they're unaffected by the hit and run in those double play situations. All of the base hits, the singles, the single plus, bloop single, doubles, bloop doubles, all of those result in the runner getting an extra base, basically. They turn singles into singles plus plus. They turn doubles into doubles plus, which is all runners score. So again, the runners, because they were going on the hit and run, they're going to get basically an extra base out of it. The lineouts are the things that are going to hurt. If you get a lineout, then it's a lineout and the runner gets doubled off of the base that they left from. So those are the negatives of the hit and run. Now, again, you get the two strikes, and you can keep the hit and run on with two strikes. But if you get a walk at that point, it is changed to a strikeout, and the runner is forced to steal without a lead. So once again, if you get two strikes and then you roll a walk, that walk becomes a strikeout, and the runner is forced to steal without a lead. So those are hit and run. You'll notice you can hit and run with runners on first and second. In that case, both runners are going with the pitch. And on a strikeout, both runners have to steal without a lead. And the lead runner's doubled up on any of the lineout results. You can also do a hit and run with runners on, first and third. And that's where runner 3, the runner on first is going to go with the pitch. Runner on 3 is not going to try to go on the pitch in that case. And then you can't hit and run with bases loaded. So those are your other hit and run situations. Another offensive situation, which again doesn't, that I don't see many games really factor in, is trying to hit to the right side. So there's nobody out, runner on second base, first base is empty. You want the batter, in some cases, to try to hit to the right sides to advance that runner to third. So they're trying to hit the ball on the ground towards second base or first base. So looking here, they'd be trying to hit it this way so that the runner on second can get to third. So once again, because they're just trying to make contact and hit it towards that side, power rating is 0 for any deep drive results on the stadium card. Keep in mind, that's only on the stadium card. So if you get a deep drive off your batter's card here, it doesn't affect it. But if it's on the stadium card, the power rating's 0. And then some of these other results change. So the double play results, 5-4-3 or 6-4-3, turn into putouts by the right side fielder. So either a 4-3 putout or a 3-1 putout because the ball was hit to the right side. Bloop singles, unfortunately, turn into unassisted putouts at first base. So you did hit the ball to the right side, but what would have been a single turns into an out. So that's hitting to the right side. Similar to hit and run, you can do a run and hit. Normal steal attempt, as it says, assumes that the batter's going on the pitch and the runner's going on the pitch. The batter is then not swinging because they want to allow him to try to steal. The hit and run is, as I said, the batter trying to put the ball in play, even on a bad pitch. In this middle ground, the run and hit, the runner is going to try to get a steal or try to steal if they get a good jump. And on top of that, the batter is going to swing if they get a good pitch to hit. So in this case, you're going to do a normal steal attempt. So you're going to try to get the jump first. And if you don't get the jump, then the run and hit is off. The run and hit is off. But if you do get a jump, then what you're going to do is do a steal attempt as normal to see if the steal attempt is successful or not. You're just adding the possibility the batter's going to put the ball in play during the steal attempt. Okay. So you're going to roll your 3 dice for the steal attempt, because if you get a jump, you roll all 3 dice. And if you don't roll any doubles, then you do a normal steal attempt. If you roll doubles during the steal attempt, then the steal attempt occurs on the final pitch of the at-bat. So there are a couple of special circumstances. Regardless, you're going to see if the steal is successful or not. Okay, keep that in mind, whether it was successful or not. Then you're going to roll your dice to get the result of the at-bat. And on a strikeout, because remember, if you roll doubles, the attempt occurs on the final pitch. On a strikeout, the batter strikes out and the runner attempts to steal on the 3rd strike, and you're going to see if he's succeeded or not. You're going to know if he's succeeded because you checked that first. So there's a possibility of a strikeout, throw him out, double play there, but you're going to see how that pans out. On a walk, the runner is automatically safe because remember, this is happening on the final pitch of the at-bat if it's doubles. So on a walk, it's a walk. There's no steal because he would be automatically safe if he were forced. Now, if you did this with a runner that wasn't forced, then you do the steal like normal. But if the ball's put into play, then you're going to change results as you would for a hit and run. So it's like a normal hit and run almost. And you're going to ignore the steal attempt. Again, this all is if you rolled doubles. If it's a wild pitch or pass ball, then again, it's no stolen base because the wild pitch or pass ball occurs and the runner is going to get to second anyway. Though, the runner in those cases has the option of challenging the catcher's arm to get an additional base. So he could challenge the catcher's arm to get an additional base. And if you're doing that, you're going to come back up here to the steal attempt like you're challenging the arm, except instead of a steal, you're going to get the additional base because of the pass ball or wild pitch. So again, all of that is if you rolled doubles, because if you roll doubles, the steal happens on the final pitch of the at-bat. With no doubles, then it's going to be a standard steal attempt, and you're going to check the results as normal, basically. Double and triple steals, again, you're going to use the lead runner stealing. So going on contact. Most of the rules assume that you are, that only the forced runners are going on contact. But you can choose to have runners go on contact, not just on bunts and that kind of thing, but on regular plays. You can just say, hey, my runner on third is going to go on contact. And in that case, the defense has a choice to make if there are certain plays. So if it's a 1-6-3, 1-4-3 double play, 5-4-3, or 5-4, so those are double play balls also, then that pitcher or third baseman, if it's the runner on third, for example, would have the option of throwing home. So it changes the results and puts that option in there of attempting to put out the lead runner that's running on contact. Same with a 1-6 or a 2-3. It's going to change the results. Similarly, if it's a runner on second going on contact, then the defense may try to put them out instead of going for the runner at first, and that changes the results as shown in this chart. Again, if it's a question mark, then the defense has the option of trying to throw out that lead runner, but they have to challenge the speed with the fielder's arm. And again, it's one of those challenges where you're like up here, where you're adding the 3 dice to the arm instead of the other way around to see if it's better than the runner speed plus 10. So that's what happens in those cases running on contact, and if there's the question mark. If it's exclamation point, on those, much like we'll see that in a minute, those the runner is put out at the plate in those cases, or the lead runner is if he's third, or runner on second going to third. If the runner on second or third are forced, they have to go on contact. So let's say a runner is on first and second, and you get a double play ball, a 6-4-3 double play ball. Well, instead of a 6-4-3, you'll notice here, instead of a 6-4-3 double play, on defense, you could choose to try to throw out that lead runner instead of getting the sure double play. You could attempt to get the lead runner instead. You'd risk it, but you could attempt to get a lead runner instead by challenging their speed. Okay, so that gives you a couple more options on defense. I don't know that you'd want to do that, but and avoid the actual double play. But sometimes you want to get that lead runner because he may be the tying run or the go-ahead run or whatever, and you're trying to get the lead runner regardless. And so you could do that. Because the runner is forced, the defense is going to add 3 to the fielder's arm on the challenges. So they get a little bit of advantage trying to throw that lead runner out if the runner is forced. Same thing, double plays with bases loaded. If the base is loaded, that result in a put out of the runner on third and have an exclamation point, like this 1-2 exclamation, 1-5 exclamation, then the runner on third's out at home, and the defense can try to get the batter out at first also. In that case, the catcher's arm is going to challenge the batter's speed, much like up here. This would be the catcher's arm with the 3 dice against the runner's speed plus 10. There's a lot of challenges in these sections. So those are all of the offense offense strategies. What about defense? What does the defense have available? We've talked about a couple of them because they popped up in here, right? Defense has the option of throwing for a lead runner sometimes, instead of getting a sure double play, for example. But here are the more common defensive strategies. The number one, I'd say, is bringing the infield in. So you have less than 2 outs. You have a runner on third, and you don't want that runner to score. You can try to bring the infield in. And if you decide to bring the infield in, the offense has to decide and declare if their runner on third is going on contact or not. That's assuming if the bases are loaded, the runner on third has to go on contact. But if the bases are not loaded and they bring the infield in, the offense decides or declares whether the runner on third is going on contact or not. It's a risk. So then what you would do is any ground ball to the infield, you're changing the results because the infield's in. So you're changing these results on the left to these results on the right, depending on whether that runner on third went on contact or not. If they didn't, then most of the time those results are just going to be a put out at first base and the runner on three holds because they didn't go on contact. So you're going to get your put out at first and the runner on three holds, which is what you're trying to do anyway. If they did go on contact, then on double play balls, the defense will throw that runner out at home. 1-2, 3-2, 4-2, 5-2, 6-2. They'll throw that runner out at home on those standard double play balls. If it's not a standard double play ball, in most cases, the defense could take the sure out at first on those cases, in which case they get the sure out at first, but the runner's going to score. But they could also challenge the runner and try to throw him out at the plate. So the only way he can score is if he went on contact, because remember, if he didn't go on contact, they're doing the put out at first base here. And again, once again, on challenges, you're going to add the arm plus the 3 dice and see if it's greater than 10 plus that runner on third speed. If the runner on third is forced, which means there's bases loaded, you're going to add 3 to the arm rating, because everybody knows, all the fielders know, they're going to go for home immediately. So they're not even thinking about it. They're just throwing home plus 3 to their arm. You'll notice what isn't in this chart to the left are 4-3 or 6-3 results. That's because those results are such that that fielder probably either had to dive to stop the ball, or it was off to his side, or whatever. And regardless of infield depth, meaning infield in or not, that runner on third is going to score, even if they didn't go on contact. So a 4-3, 6-3 is a regular put out, and the runner on third is going to score on those cases, because you'll notice it's not listed in the chart here. All right. So we talked about infield in, and infield in bases loaded is a special case that we've briefly highlighted because of this +3 arm if runner on third is forced, which means the bases are loaded. With the bases loaded, all of these exclamation points mean that there's a potential of a double play. The fielder is going to throw to home to get out number 1, and automatically they're going to get out number 1 in those cases. But the catcher can always also challenge the runner's speed, catcher's arm plus the 3 dice against 10 plus the runner's speed. And if they're successful, it's a double play. All right. The other thing that I'll mention, so what's the penalty? The huge penalty for bringing the infield in. The huge penalty for bringing the infield in is that on the stadium card, this whole range of options here in purple, here at Yankee Stadium, it's 638 to 658. So all of these purple options change to single plus with the infield in. So the ball gets hit through a drawn-in infield and is a base hit. And again, this is only the stadium card purple options here. If the infield's in, those result in base hits. So that's a huge penalty. And you may think, well, that doesn't come up very often. Trust me, it does. It does more than you think. So that's the defense strategy that's most common, is bringing the infield in. Other thing you can do is bunt defense. And that's where you're going to bring the corners in only to defend against the bunt. And so you're going to bring the corners in, much like we talked about before with the infield in. If the corner outfielders are going to add 3 to their arm for any challenges on the bunt table because they're in closer to the plate. The 3 to 6, 5 to 4, so the first base or third base positions on the stadium chart turn into base hits because those positions are in. Doesn't affect 4 to 6 or 6 to 4 because those positions are not in. It only affects first and third. And it changes who covers on bunts. With the first baseman playing in, then the second baseman's covering first. So you have to change some of the putouts based on that. So that's bunt defense. The other thing you can do is guard the lines. So late in the game, you have the tying or go-ahead run at the plate, and you don't want to allow a double. You want to keep it to singles if you can. So you can guard the lines to prevent those balls hit right down the line into the corner that turn into doubles. And if you do that, then it's going to change some results. So most of these strategies change results in some way. So the guard the lines one changes a bloop double into a bloop single. So those bloop doubles are going to be singles instead of doubles. However, it's going to change the F7s and F9s into singles plus. By the way, it's only an F7 or F9 that it changes into a single plus. It's not an F7 plus or an F9 plus, which would be sac flies normally, that becomes single pluses. Those would stay regular F7 plus, F9 plus. But an F7 or F9 straight up becomes a first base plus. So it increases the overall chance of a base hit, but decreases the chance of a double, basically. All right, so it's late in the game. Winning runs on third base. There's less than 2 outs. Any deep fly ball will end the game. Then you can bring the outfield in. And again, much like the other results, you are going to take the results on the left and change them to results on the right. All of the fly balls that have pluses on them become double pluses. All of the regular fly balls that have R3 plus on them become double pluses. However, singles, like a single left field, single center, single right, all become flyouts, but the runner on third has the choice of trying to tag up. So those singles aren't very deep hit. They're caught, and the runner on third has the chance of trying to tag up. Now, if there's a runner on third and it's the winning run, keep in mind you don't get a double. You're only going to get awarded a single on the base hit. So just keep that in mind. The other thing you can do on defense is hold the runner. So runner on first, second base is empty. It's assumed that the defense is holding the runner. It's assumed that you're holding the runner. You don't have to announce it. It's assumed you're holding the runner. If you are holding the runner, then these 3 to 6 results on the stadium card turn into single pluses. Just the 3 to 6, because the first baseman is playing out of position, basically, because he's holding the runner on base. Now, the defense has the choice of saying, I'm not going to hold the runner. So in that case, the 3 to 6 does not change to a single plus. However, the penalty is that runner on first automatically gets a lead. So much more likely for him to try to steal, because he's automatically going to get the lead. And He has a +3 speed on any base hit challenge, on any bunt, ground balls challenges, base hits, ground balls, and bunts. He has a +3 speed on any challenge plays. It doesn't affect him tagging up on flyouts because he'd have to go back and tag up. But it affects all the other stuff. It gives him a +3 speed. So there's a trade-off there as well. Other thing, and this is the last thing for defense, is pitching around a hitter. Maybe the game's tied and a huge power hitter comes up. You have Mark McGwire coming up, and you don't really want to walk him intentionally, but you also don't want to groove one and give him something to hit. So you can choose to pitch around him. And in that case, you're greatly increasing the chance of a walk, but you're going to decrease the chance of like a home run. So in the case of where you're pitching around the hitter, 600 to 699, all of those turn into walks. Bloop singles, bloop doubles, those turn into walks. The deep drives, you're going to subtract 3 from the power. So much more likely that you're not going to give up a home run in that case, because you're going to subtract 3 from the power. You're just going to give up a lot more walks. You can do the infield in and pitch around at the same time, but infield in is going to override the result. And then the last thing, talking about extreme defensive shifts, you think, okay, well, this is a lot of options, but I want to bring in huge shifts like they used to do a couple years ago before MLB banned them. Well, those are already factored into the results. You don't have to worry about shifts because they're already incorporated into the results. All right. Those are offensive and defensive strategies and ratings-based defense. The last thing I want to talk about, we'll say second to last thing. The second to last thing I want to talk about is weather. If you choose to play with weather, which is an optional rule, all of these are optional rules, rare plays on challenges and so forth, weather, you would roll dice to start the game. Let's look at Yankee Stadium. Let's look at Yankee Stadium here. This is all optional. First of all, decide what month you're playing in. Let's say we're in August at Yankee Stadium, and it's a night game. Then what we're going to do is we're going to come over here, and we're going to roll our dice and add these up. 4 plus 1 plus 8, that's 13. And we're going to add that to the base temp. So what did I say, August? 63 plus 13. The game time temperature is 76 degrees at Yankee Stadium. Then we're going to roll rain option. 8 plus 3 is 11 plus 5 is 16. It is an overcast day. It's an overcast day. You can have clear, you can have clouds, you can have overcast, then you can have light and heavy rain that have other impacts that we'll see here in a minute. Let's look at those now. So light rain. Let's look at light rain. Light rain, all fielding ratings are reduced by 3 for all challenges. So that's on all base runner challenges. You're going to reduce the fielding rating by 3, which really increases the chance of overthrows, because remember, overthrows occur when the dice, when the two 10-sided dice are both above the range of the fielder, or excuse me, the fielding rating of the fielder. If they're both higher than the fielding, then it's an overthrow error. Well, you're going to reduce that fielding by 3 to determine that. It doesn't affect ratings-based defense or anything like that. It only affects challenges. That's light rain. Heavy rain, so if we had rolled heavy rain here, by the way, it says -3 fielding right here, so you could have seen that. If you get heavy rain, you're going to roll again. You're going to roll again. And you're going to get a number. The 6-sided die is going to be the tens digit to give you a number between 1 and 6. And the 10-sided die is going to be the ones digit, give you a number between 0 and 9. So you're going to get a number between 10 and 69. And that is how long the rain delay is in minutes. Domed stadiums are not affected. Convertible stadiums are not affected by temperature or rain. Because convertible stadiums, they'll just close their roof, right? So they're not affected by that stuff. They can just close the roof. The other thing, if you're playing with weather, if you get a 509 on a rare play, that triggers a possible change in the weather. You have to roll on the precipitation section, rain table again. If you get a 509, you roll again on this rain table. And if that results in, it can result in light rain all of a sudden in the middle of the game or a heavy rain. So either way, if you roll a heavy rain, you're going to be delayed 10 to 69 minutes, and you're going to roll again. You'll notice it says roll again to see what the weather is like after the heavy rain delay. If you get another heavy rain delay, then it's a rain out. So if you get 2 heavy rain in a row, it's a rain out. If you roll a 509 to trigger a random weather change in the middle of the game on the rare play, and you roll on here and you get heavy rain, you're gonna that delay is going to determine what impact it has on the pitchers. So rain delays cause fatigue to each team's current pitcher. For every 20 minutes of the rain delay, there's 1 added to the fatigue of each of the pitchers. A lot of times in real life, you'll see that where there's a long rain delay, and they'll just switch out the pitchers because the pitchers kind of stiffen up and all of that stuff because they can't keep loose during the rain delay. So that is factored in here in adding fatigue to those pitchers to maybe impact that for you. So if games are rained out before they start or postponed, the teams can get scheduled to play again. If the game's rained out after 4.5 innings, though, and the home team's leading, then it's the home team's declared the winner. If the game's rained out after 5 innings, then whichever team is leading is declared the winner at that point. If they're tied after 5 innings, then they'll suspend the game and resume at a future date, next day if possible, but they'll resume at a future date. And if none of those apply, then the game is just canceled altogether and is restarted from scratch basically at a later date. So there's a little bit more realism in there if you want to add that in for these rain delays and that kind of thing. Now the other thing you can roll for, you do temperature, you can do rain. And by the way, if the temperature is high enough or low enough, it can impact the deep drive chart. You'll notice if the temperature is below 54 or greater than 84, it's going to impact the deep drive rolls. So keep that in mind. The other thing that can impact deep drive rolls is the wind. And that's the other chart you can roll on. That you'll only roll the 2 10-sided dice. So let's do that and show you. Add those 2 up. 5 plus 3 is 8. No significant wind. But if it's below 6 or greater than 12, then the wind is either blowing out or in or blowing left to right or right to left. And based on that, you're going to change the deep drive chart +1 or -1 based on where it's hit and what the wind is like. You'll change those deep drives numbers. Remember, you roll the dice, you add the power rating of the fielder, or excuse me, of the batter. Well, in those cases, you're going to add 1 or subtract 1, or some cases +0, based on the wind and where it's hit. So that's weather. Finally, Auto Manager. Auto Manager. This is the thing that I love so much about this game is Auto Manager. And I use it all the time. You can use Auto Manager to decide when runners advance, when they steal or attempt to steal, when they sacrifice bunt. You can use it for hit and run, determining when hit and run is made, when runners go on contact, when there's going to be a pinch runner or a pinch hitter for the pitcher. All of that stuff can be determined by Auto Manager. So what you do on Auto Manager for runner advancement, decide if a runner tries to advance when he can. If the runner has the option of advancing, And usually that's if there's the position in parentheses next to the base hit. That tells you the runner has the option of advancing, but doesn't automatically. You're going to look at this chart, and you're going to say, how many outs are there? 0, 1, or 2. And what base is the runner going to attempt to get to? What's the next base? So as you can see here, you're going to cross-reference that, and it's either going to be yes, no, or maybe. If there are no outs, and the runner's on third and the next base is home, no means he's not going to try to score. So with no outs, that runner on third is never going to try to score with the auto manager. Okay. Likewise, if there are 2 outs, the runner's never going to try to get to third with the auto manager. Never going to try to get to third with the auto manager. With 2 outs, though, the runner on third's always going to try to score with 2 outs. Yes. Yes means the runner always scores or tries to score. Always. Most of the chart is maybe. And maybe means that the runner is going to try to challenge that fielder's arm if their speed is equal to or greater than the fielder's arm. So let's go back here to Dave Henderson and see his arm in center field is a 4. And let's just look at Jeter. Speed is 7. So he, on a maybe, would always try to challenge Henderson's arm because his speed is greater than or equal to Henderson's arm. Okay? Always. Or, also, this is where the D20 comes in. You'll see the D20 down here. If the D20 roll is lower than the runner's speed, he'll also challenge regardless of the fielder's arm. So if the speed here, if Jeter's, let's find a slower runner, shall we? Let's find a slower runner. Tino Martinez. Well, you're not going to get lower. Let's find another runner. Okay, here's a good Luis Sojo has a speed of 3. His speed is not going to exceed or equal Dave Henderson's arm rating of 4, so he wouldn't go on a maybe against Dave Henderson. But if we on the D20 rolled a 2 or a 1, then he would, because that's less than his speed. So those are the 2 options for maybes. Either the speed or is greater than or equal to the fielder's arm, or the D20 roll is less than the runner's speed. Then they'll try to go. And that simulates runners who aren't as speedy trying to take that extra base when they maybe shouldn't. So I kind of like that. Steal attempts. Same little chart. Yes, no, maybe. Or actually it's maybe, no, and rarely, I should say. Runner on third with 2 out. Rarely going to try to steal on that. Rarely. But it could happen. It could happen. But only if he's going to try to get that lead at third. Only if there are 2 out. There's nobody on second. And his steal rating equals or exceeds the D20 roll. So the steal rating would have to be equal to or greater than that. And his speed is at least 3, 4, 5, or 6, depending on what era you're playing in. If all of those are true, then he's going to try to establish a lead. No, if it's a no, the runner isn't going to try to establish a lead no matter what. That's 2 outs with a runner on second. That's 1 out with a runner on third. That's no outs with a runner on second or a runner on third. Those are never going to try to establish a lead to try to steal. So all the others are maybe. So that's anytime there's a runner on first is a maybe. And with 1 out and a runner on second, it's a maybe. And the maybe means that you're going to try to get a lead if the speed is equal to or greater than the catcher's arm. Oh, let's find the catcher. Ron Hassey, arm of 5. Jeter, speed equals or exceeds catcher arm. Speed equals or exceeds catcher arm. So Jeter's going to try to get a lead if it's a maybe. He's going to try to get a lead. Tim Raines, his speed, this is by the way when he was 38, his speed is not equal to or exceeding the catcher's arm, so he's not going to try to steal from that. But if the D20 were lower than his steal, so if the D20 was a 1, then he would try to steal, or try to get a lead, I should say. For auto steals, you only try to steal if you get the lead. You have to try to get the lead. That's why all of this was, do you want to try to establish a lead or not? The other bonus that you can factor into this is you add 1 to the speed if the score is tied or the batting team leads by less than 4 runs. So if Tim Raines was up to bat and the Yankees were either tied or they had less than a 4-run lead, then +1 to his speed would make his speed a 5, and then all of a sudden that speed is equal to the arm of the catcher. So he would try to get the lead for purposes of that. So it increases the chances of steal attempts when the game is tied or the batting team leads by less than 4 runs. Now, if the Yankees were down by a couple runs, then he wouldn't get the +1 bonus. So he wouldn't try to steal. Also, you're never going to try to steal if the batting team trails by 2 or more runs in the 8th inning or later. So that's the other case where you're not going to try to steal. What about hit and run? So for hit and run, the following have to be true. There have to be less than 2 outs. There has to be a runner on first and second. And the D20 has to be below the batter's contact. So in this case, let's say it's Tim Raines. 1 through 5, that would be true. But in addition to that, you have to have one of the following true too. So if he's batting, all of that have to be true first to see if it's the hit and run is on. The runner's speed has to be greater than the batter's power. So Tim Raines' power is 3. Let's say Jeter's on base. His speed is 7. His speed is 7, so we would still be good there. So we would definitely hit and run. Or we would also hit and run if the D20 is below the contact, but greater than the power of Raines. So if it was a 4 or a 5, we'd also hit and run, because it's below contact and above power, regardless of the speed of the runner. So there's a couple options there. Sacrifice bunts. Sacrifice bunts. Well, what you do in that case is fewer than 2 out, 1 or more runners on. You look at the bunt rating of the batter. Oh, we'll go with Jeter. I'm using him as an example a lot. Bunt rating of 5. Okay. If the batter is the pitcher, you're going to add 3, but that's not the case here. You're going to, again, if you're pre-1947, you're also going to add a D20 if the D20 is below the batter's bunt rating. So if this were 1940, we would add, if we rolled a 1 through 4, we would add that 1 through 4 to the bunt rating for this purpose. But we're not, so we're going to ignore that one. Now we're going to subtract the batter's contact and power. Well, Jeter's not going to probably be bunting because 8 plus 6 is a 14. 5 minus 14 is a -9. -9. So Jeter's not going to be bunting. He's not going to be sacrifice bunting because his contact and power is way more than his bunting. Let's look at somebody else, shall we? Let's go back to, no, Tim Raines doesn't bunt either. Luis Sojo. Luis Sojo. So now we have a starting bunt of 5. Minus power plus contact is 4. 5 minus 4 is a 1. If there's a runner on first and no outs, Sojo is going to bunt. He's going to sacrifice bunt because that 5 minus his power and contact is equal to or greater than the bunt threshold. That's what these numbers are. With no outs, you look in this. If there were a runner on second, though, he would not bunt because that threshold is a 2 and 5 minus 4 is only 1. If there were a runner on first and second, he would bunt because that threshold is 0, and his 1 is greater than or equal to that. That's how you look at this. With 1 out, he's not going to bunt because 3 is greater than his threshold, right? Again, if it's the pitcher up to bat, you're going to add 3 to the bunt rating to look at this chart. So much more likely. Other cases, if runner 3 will always go on contact if there's 1 out and they have a speed of 3 or higher. So Soho in our case, if there's 1 out, if he's on third base and there's 1 out, he's going to try to score. He's going to go on contact because his speed is 3 or higher. You're going to pinch run if the score's tied in the 8th, less than 2 out. If the new runner's speed is 4 or more points higher than the current runner's speed. So they have to have a speed 4 or more higher than the current base runner in order to pinch run. And then pinch hitting for the pitcher. If you're going to remove him for a relief pitcher anyway, pinch hit. Also pinch hit if you are trailing and the current pitcher is vulnerable to fatigue, he gets pinch hit for. Auto defense, always try to get the lead runner out at home. Also try to get the lead runner if the arm of the fielder is greater than or equal to the speed of the runner. Always hold runners if their speed is 2 or higher. And if the batting team trails in the 9th inning or later, only hold the runner if it's the tying or go-ahead run. So if the run's not important, you're not holding them on. Always bring the infield in with a runner on third and less than 2 outs if the game is tied or the batting team leads. If it's a bunt, if the bunt threshold is met, then the corners are in. Corners are in if the bunt threshold is met automatically, if you're using Auto Manager. If it's the 9th inning or later and the bases are empty and the batter is the tying or go-ahead run, you're going to guard the lines. And you're going to intentionally walk or pitch around if there's a runner on second or third, first base is empty, and the score is tied or the batting team is ahead. If the batter's hitting rating is higher than the on-deck batter's hitting rating, then you're going to look at the difference. And hitting is the contact plus the power minus the stuff of the pitcher. Calculate that difference. The difference between those, you add the number of outs and the number of runners. And if it's 4 through 6, you're going to pitch around. If it's 7 or more, you're going to intentionally walk. Okay? So that's that. Again, it doesn't come up very often. And the other one that comes up a lot is deciding when to take out a pitcher. When the fatigue reaches the following limits, you're going to remove the pitcher. In the middle of an inning, if the starter's fatigue is 4, you're going to remove the pitcher. If he's thrown a shutout, the fatigue has to be a 5, plus 1 if the starter's throwing a shutout, to pull him out in the middle of an inning. If it's a 3, then you're going to pull him out between innings. So he finished an inning, his fatigue is a 3, you're going to pull him out and replace him to start the new inning. Relievers are a little different. So relievers, you're going to pull them out when their fatigue is a 2. You're going to pull them out between innings if their fatigue is a 1. So if they've reached a level 1 of fatigue, you're going to pull them out between innings. Now there's a +2 bonus to this if their stamina is 0 in that first inning of relief. So those pitchers can pitch to a few more batters in those cases. So that's the Auto Manager. Only other thing I'll say that's very handy is to memorize this runner advancement. Unforced runners at second hold on all of these results, and unforced runners on third hold on all of these results. Usually they're double play balls or would be double play balls. then those unforced runners do not advance on these results. Otherwise, they do advance. So, I think that's it. Another long video. I covered a lot of ground. I'm going to bookmark so you can find the places you need to find and not listen to the whole video if you don't need to. Again, like I said on the first video, probably, I think I'm 95 or more % correct in all of this. If I've made a mistake, leave that in a comment. It's quite possible that talking about all this stuff, I misspoke or said something wrong or made a mistake in my interpretation. And I do make mistakes. I'm human. So leave that in the comments. Otherwise, hopefully this was helpful to you. Again, I know that you could read some of this stuff, just read the rules. But some people, it's a little bit more helpful just to see somebody walk through it or explain it or listen to it being explained. And so that's what this is for. I will have some played games for you to look at where you can watch me playing. And I'll, like the next one I do, I'll kind of take a little bit more time and explain what I'm doing as I'm doing it. And so my Best of the 90s tournament actually has a couple of do or die games, game 5s taking place. So that will probably be the next video I do, will be one of the game 5s, kind of a play that you can watch me play those and see how this all factors in an actual play. But with all that said, that is where we will leave things today. I hope that you found some of this helpful. If so, leave a comment down below. Leave me some other suggestions on what you would like to see for future videos. And once again, I thank you for all the support. Thank you so much. And until next time, have a great evening.